Hello, dear friends. Well, it took us by surprise that the show started. Okay, where should I look at? Okay, so we're very happy to be with you. We're in the fifth lesson, a very special, very exciting lesson, one that I personally like very much. And I'm sure also Moshe Admoni and Tal Pen. And we'll start immediately. We would like to remind you a few things we spoke of till now. One, the purpose of creation, to benefit his creatures, to accept pleasure in an unlimited vessel. And for that matter, we've learned how the Creator concealed himself, and even more than that, because a process which is called the shattering of the vessels, and that process created an illusion where the only soul that was created is seemingly separated, and now we're in a situation where we develop inside our will to receive, when we're constantly looking for we're in search of pleasure, meaning, and so on. From above downward forces activate us. We spoke about it a lot in the lesson of the law of root and branch. Those laws operate in a one-sided way. They activate the Reshimot, which is the spiritual genetic information, if we can call it that way, which is encoded inside the will to receive of each and every one of us the moment we descended from above downward. And we have reached a state where a very special Reshimot, which is called the point in the heart, was awakening in every one of us, and now we can implement it by reactivating that Reshimot, that point in the heart, to connect to that single source, to that soul, to that Kli vessel, which will be able to feel the Creator, the light, which then filled him in the first state, and now we want to do it by ourselves.
Yep, and we said that it doesn't happen simply so, but those sparks, the parts which are pure, closer in their essence to the quality of bestowal, they awaken first. Throughout our history, these are the Kabbalists, starting with Adam Arishon until our times, Rav Leitman and we, together with you. And we're developing the method, and we're not simply developing the method, but actually we're working inside the system of connections between us, and we make it so that the type of the souls, the most progressed type of souls, which are we, will have the entire preparation, the possibility to raise, to acknowledge the Creator. This is how they pass on the method and leave us in their scriptures a very special key that we talked about, the language of the branches, where we, as beginners, we use the Kabbalah books just for one thing from our level, not in order to know more, not to become smarter, or astrology, or numerology, or all the things that surrounded the Kabbalah, but I want to feel what the Kabbalists write about in their books. I want that to be my drive, that to be my intention, that to motivate me when I get into studying what the wisdom of Kabbalah is and beyond, because I want to become one with the purpose of life. This is the only way that you can attain it. And in the beginning of the lesson, Ami told me, wait a second, hold it. We're going to reveal this only on this lesson. The question is, where will I get the great big desire to acknowledge all this? So this is the thing that we'll talk about on this lesson, but not before we talk about the intention and what could be better for that than listening to Dr. Leitman, Rav Leitman, where he speaks about the true intention. Let's see it.
I recommend that you will think today with what we started the lesson, which is the revelation of upper worlds in the relationship between people, and that's it. Here between us, this is where it is revealed. If I build a mutual field of understanding with the friends, when we relate to each other in a certain way, I'm for my beloved and my beloved for me, I find the Creator there. Everything all in all is revealed in the relationship between us. The relationship between us is the vessel, and what is revealed inside the vessel, the quality of love and bestowal. This is the Creator, light. And therefore, there is nowhere to run away to. There is no place for the next world, heaven, paradise, behind the horizon, I don't know where, behind the moon or something. All in all, we reveal it by improving the relationship between people. So, let's think about it, let's talk about it. That will be the most realistic, practical thing to do. We have to convince ourselves, we have to understand that it is here between us, and therefore a person who, in order for him not to disconnect from that important relationship, it is with the friends. Here in this mutual effort, this is where we discover the spiritual world, the uppermost degree. And this world, later on, disappears. There are a few meanings to the world. Concealment, concealed, disappears, hidden. So I'm asking you to set that as your thought for today.
So, what we'd like to talk about today is start scrutinizing the topic of our lesson, which is about the freedom of choice. Is there freedom of choice? And if so, where? And how do we realize it? And for this lesson, we will focus on one very special article that when I read it for the first time, I felt shivers. I don't know. There was no world. The text simply encompassed me, and I felt that what I'm reading now is a truth which I don't know how to explain. It simply penetrated each cell in my body. And it's a very special article. We'll read small bits from it. We already recommend reading it. It's a long article, non-simple. It's called The Freedom by Bala Sulam. So, look, friends, it's really the very first article from which we have to start everything. Because the question, after all that we talked about, the pleasure and the law of root and branch and all of our search, the question is, can I decide about something in my life? I have a feeling that I can. I have a feeling that every word, every action, every thought, things that happen inside, things that happen on the outside, I decide about them. Sure, I'm free. If you can do it, great, because if you can't, if I'm not free, then I don't know, better just close down the whole thing, throw the key away, and just go, because everything is prefixed. But this special article that starts from the point where our points in the heart awaken and we start searching, this is the article that we're going to start talking about. And like the Kabbalists, they advise us, we'll go in with the entire intention. We want for Bala Sulam to take us by his hands. We want to get into what he tells us about, we want to feel. Look, it's a very special article. It's the whole charge in our life. We want to get in and feel what Bala Sulam talks about and try and take it upon us and take upon this form that he has given us, and as a result we are ready to draw their forming light.
So let's get started. To understand the sublime concept, it's quote number 1. To understand the sublime concept, freedom from the angel of death, we must first understand the concept of freedom as it is normally understood by all of humanity. It is a general view that freedom is deemed a natural law, which applies to all of life. Thus, we see that animals that fall into captivity die when we rob them of their freedom. This is a true testimony that providence does not accept the enslavement of any creature. It is with good reason that humanity has been struggling for the past several hundred years to obtain a certain measure of freedom of the individual. Yet, this concept expressed in that word freedom remains unclear, and if we delve into the meaning of that word, there will be almost nothing left. For before you seek the freedom of the individual, you must assume that any individual in and of itself has that quality called freedom, meaning that one can act according to one's own free choice. It's a great paradox what Baal Sulam writes about here. On the one hand, the freedom is a law of nature, and as he writes, if we deprive animals from their freedom, we see that they can get into depression and even die. A familiar phenomenon in captive animals. And humanity, throughout its whole history, is always looking for freedom, fighting for freedom, doing revolutions for freedom. And that question is very loaded, because if we long for freedom and so much, and that concept is so sublime and exalted for us, then do we truly have freedom? Meaning, what are we fighting for? If we can be free of our nature, the nature of a will to receive, with respect to what do I choose freely? Out of what do I scrutinize my choices? Am I really free to choose to go and do whatever I want?
Freedom, why do we struggle over it? Because it comes from the root, from the quality of bestowal, the force of bestowal. It's being free, it's independent. It's not like the will to receive that suppose I'm the receiver, Amit's the giver, he's the force of bestowal, so everything depends on Amit. But if I'm the force of bestowal, that I'm independent, and this is why I'm free, this is why we fight about it, so to fight for it. It's like we say, I want to be completely free from everything. Is that freedom? Where I have no frameworks whatsoever, so what do I choose? We see that children, they develop only when they get certain, they're given a certain framework. I tell my 2-year-old child, instead of telling him, wear this, I tell him, what do you prepare, this or that? And then he feels that he chooses, I'll choose this. So I gave him both choice and also framework. So what is freedom? It's something very blurry, as Baal Sulam says, and he also says that freedom itself, not sure that this quality exists in a person. It's a quality. It's a spiritual attainment. It's a degree by which I attain freedom, and he defines it by the words that he can act according to his own choice, from his own free choice, meaning that his desire becomes free. Free of what? So let's scrutinize now. Do we have this quality at all called freedom? We, in our life. And just to remind everyone, help me, Amit, and Tal, not to forget about the intention. What are we learning for, and what are we teaching this thing together for?
There's a small question, curious one, to test that thing. John from England is asking us, where is the freedom of choice now in this lesson? It's beautiful. Now the freedom of choice in this lesson is to scrutinize during the lesson, why am I studying for? What do I want to get out of this lesson? I don't want to say more, perhaps you want to.
Let's try to be together in this. Look, we are the will to receive. To some extent, we're free in our will to receive. We decide what am I going to want in a moment. in Hebrew and also in Italian, you say, I feel like it. I feel like it. But feel like it. Why? How come? Where does it come from? This sprout that suddenly pumps everything up. Because I'm not boss over that. Am I really free? Let's see what Bala Sulam says about the question. Do we have this quality called freedom? He says, to understand the sublime concept. However, when we examine the acts of an individual, we shall find them compulsory. He is compelled to do them and has no freedom of choice. In a sense, he is like a stew cooking on a stove. It has no choice but to cook, and it must cook because Providence has harnessed life with two chains, pleasure and pain. The living creatures have no freedom of choice to choose pain or reject pleasure, and man's advantage over animals is that he can aim at a remote goal, meaning to agree to a certain amount of current pain out of choice of future benefit of pleasure, or pleasure to be attained after some time.
The amazing thing about this article is how direct it is, how blunt it is, where Bala Sulam writes and explains here. He removes the curtain behind all kinds of conceptions and perceptions we live by. He writes in a very simple manner. So basically, this is us, the human species. Man is also considered to be an animal, the most evolved animal, but like any other animal, people too are managed in a very simple way because our nature is the will to receive, meaning to receive maximum pleasure with minimum effort. And basically, people are being managed by two forces, one force pushing him from behind and another force pulling him from the front. A force of pleasure and pain. That's it. This is what we've got. So basically, in a very simple manner, this is how our lives is being governed. What is the advantage of humanity over the rest of the animals? Let's say animals, if there's a piece of land where they can find greater pleasure, they will move there. But if they find greater pleasure, then all the animals move to the other side of the river. And this is how animals behave in a very simple manner. The human species, seemingly, Bala Sulam writes, we can make choices in which we set a pleasure for which we are prepared to suffer, as merchandise do.
For example, I say for years, I'm working my butt off in order to buy eventually a beautiful house or a car.
Or I can live in a one-room apartment, tiny apartment, eat sardines, work in 3 works to pay for my studies and to invest a lot in them. And at the end of those 7 years, I will get a diploma which will say, a medicine doctor, I'm prepared to invest in it a lot and suffer for it for 7 years.
Meaning, seemingly, it's opposite to animals. It's like if I you have a cat, Tal?
No, a dog.
A dog, okay. So, what does your dog like eating?
Everything.
Great. Okay, so we put everything in this bowl, and suppose if the dog, he's new into things, he'll jump on the table. until for the very first time he'll feel a hand pounding on his hand, and then he'll no longer try it. All he'll try, he'll run from the suffering and pursue the pleasure. We, the other way around. Is it truly so?
No.
No.
This is what Bala Solomon writes. It's a simple manner. It is how we determine pleasure. In a very clear manner, we can see that in pleasures, in animals, the pleasure is very corporal. It's very clear. Kabbalists call it a beastly kind of pleasure. All in on what motivates them is food, the desire to multiply, to sustain their life in such a corporal manner. And for us, the humankind, we have different desires. We spoke about it in previous lessons. We have main desires, desire for rich, wealth, and knowledge, and now also for spirituality. And according to those desires, we can make more complicated calculations and to trade with pain and pleasure in a way that gives us the illusion of free choice. Are we the ones who determine what really appeals to me, draws me, and this is why I'm prepared to invest 7 years in medicine? Or I don't decide even that?
So what Bala Sulam actually says that it's true. We have more complicated calculations opposed to animals. We can reject the pleasure to a time in the future. We can bear a certain amount of suffering in order to attain it. But when we look at it, the truth is we see that it's a commercial calculation, meaning I calculate the suffering. This is what we do. The theory of games is based on it. I calculate the suffering that I have to take now because my will to receive wants to get everything now, the pleasure immediately. Why? Because I know that in some time I'll get a much greater pleasure compared to the suffering that I put in now or the investment that I put in. If we erase this complicated calculation, we see the same. It's like animals. What? Eventually, I want the pleasure, and this is what I have left. And accordingly, I calculate, meaning in this terms, there's not that much of a difference. We and animals, we work according to the same program. I could say, wait a moment, and I'm sure all our friends are asking, this is possible, but I choose what to enjoy. I choose what to enjoy, how to enjoy, in what way, when, and look, hey, it's an infinite amount of possibilities.
Let's watch a clip.
Clip?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, okay. Let's watch a clip.
We have a clip. We prepared it in advance.
טוב, רימה את הכלב, אה?
כן, מה זה רימה?
עבד עליו בעיניים, אה?
He cheated the dog, right? Okay, interesting clip. Let's see what Bala Sulam says about the questions which we ask.
Can we really decide what pleasure is? Let's see. Even determining the type, we are continue with the article The Freedom. Even determining the type of pleasure and benefit are entirely out of one's own free choice. but follow the will of others as they want, and not he. For example, I sit, I dress, I speak, and I eat. I do all this not because I want to sit that way or talk that way or dress that way or eat that way, but because others want me to sit, dress, talk, and eat that way, and it all follows the desire and fancy of society. Listen, before I came up here to the studio to sit here together with you, so I took off my pants, it has 2 holes in it, and my green t-shirt, and I wore those clothes. And the question is, why? Did I choose to do that?
The truth is that Rav Lightman, he gives an example from what he heard from Rabash, where he says that, really, if we're to think about it, the most comfortable thing is to wear your jammies all the time. You know, it's very airy, comfortable, cozy. And it's nice to go out into the street with my jammies, I don't know, say good morning to my neighbor or eat something with my hands. I can't forget that when I started living in Europe, we, the Israelis, were a relatively new culture. But in Europe, in order to get along as a culture, they learned how to say things. I used to tell people things very directly as an Israeli, and they used to get offended. So I learned from the laws of society that you have to say things this way. And sometimes you can say the worst possible things, but a person feels that it's really sweet. Why? Because there are laws as to how to do it. So if we examine this, and I recommend you to examine this, any motion, any action depends on reality. And there are plenty of researches in psychology and the theory of games and genetics. People, they make ads, Facebook, everything which is made for us. First of all, it studies the human behavior, psychological behaviors, in order to predict our behavior, and they succeed.
And they are very successful. So actually, the environment is people who know how to work with the environment. They know how to build a culture which molds us. And we've learned it also from the roots. A person is in a system where seemingly there is me, and there is what's outside of me. But on the other hand, we learned that if we're talking about the roots, then it's not really true, and that's an understatement. A single kli, a single desire, a single soul was created, and we, in our illusion, we think that there's me, there's Tal, there's Moshe, there's you, there is an environment outside of me. But in fact, the desires and thoughts of all of us are connected organically like the organs of our body, like the cells in our body. Only we don't feel that. So if that's the way it is, then of course I depend on other people and what they will do, what they will think, what they will want. I will want the same thing and I will think the same thing, and this is where I will go to. I don't need too many commercials for that. It is said that a person is expend between 3,000 to 20,000 advertisements a day. 7 to 14, 15 of them sink into a person. There are studies about all that. But also without all that, later on we will mention a few of those studies and we'll put them on a Facebook group. We will see that we are connected in such a way, like cogwheels. Bala Sulam writes about it in his article, The Peace. And actually, it puts us in this sack of mutual interdependency, which becomes more apparent to us throughout our history, till our current state. to the same extent that our individualism grows. So that conflict is what brings us to this strong question of what am I doing with my life today?
Prophet Salam, actually, by these words of his, he talks to us about a law in nature, and this law of nature, he tells us, if we can see the sketch, the black is us, all of us, the 7 billion, and the red are the ties, thousands of ties between all of us. And this law of nature says that we must live a life of social connections. Impossible for someone to live his life on his own. All my desires, everything that I do, internally, I do it with respect to society. No such thing as a person per se, but only with respect to society. And also those who flee from society, they do it in terms of, I don't need them. It's always with relation to, and a person needs these connections. And we'll take examples of how, we know this from psychology, how society can correct a person's given qualities that he was born with and enhance them or redirect them and so on. And we can see that society is engaged a lot in the negative, how to run from suffering. But how to reach the good? No, nothing about it. It's always about all the novels, all the everything. How could we run from the bad, from the evil? And there was research about it.
There's an amazing research about it in Facebook. I'm very moved from it, and also from Facebook itself, but also about this study. 600,000 people. What Facebook did in a given weekend, they changed posts of people, and they divided the 600,000 people into 3 groups. She added negative posts to one group, to another group, positive groups, and to another group they didn't do anything. And they discovered that people who were exposed to positive posts as a negative posts as a response, they also posted negative posts, and vice versa with people who were posted with the positive posts.
One more example that I saw is that the influence of TV over children, Walt Disney clips, they're innocent, so to speak, no problem. They took this doll that you knock down and it stands back up on its own. They put a 3-year-old child, told him, play with it. So what this 3-year-old child does, he comes, he hugs it, he kisses it. Okay, great. Later on, he was exposed to a few Disney clips on TV, Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse, Pluto, the guys, what they do.
Innocent.
What does he do? He started to punch on that doll. Why? Because he learns behavior from the environment. Environment isn't just people. Anything which influences me is called an environment. It could be, I don't know, Solzhenitsyn or Ayn Rand or whatever writer from how many years ago. But if I'm connected to that, he influences me. And we saw that many youngsters took their own life after the Werder suffering, young Werder. Meaning my connection to society is so strong. There's the psychologist Paul Bloom, will send you his lecture. He investigated the influence of society over people's tastes. What did they taste? It's a simple example. They gave children, they let them taste an apple from 2 bags. One was from a simple bag and a plastic bag, and the other was from a McDonald's bag. They asked them what's tastier. You can imagine what the answer is. And it's not only that it seems, but they said it was a test, and they said they were tested that it was tastier.
There's an amazing study about that where they put people into MRI, they scan their brain, and they map the brain when a person gets wine through a straw, and they tell him this is wine that costs that and that, it's from that and that year, it's a cheap wine, and they see the centers of pleasure in his brain blinking gently. And then they tell him with the same wine, exact same wine, that this is a good wine, it costs a lot of wine, it's from a special winery, and the centers of pleasure in his brain, they explode. Same wine. You can see it in his brain. Meaning
That were we to disconnect ourselves for a moment, see ourselves from the side, look at ourselves in society, we'd see that our entire behavior, and Bala Sulam writes about it, I talk, I sit, I stand, I eat, I do, everything which I do is because society dictates how to do it and what to do, and not because I want it. And if we were to look at ourselves from the side, a few hundreds of years ago, people wore wigs or feathers or whatever, and I'd look at I'd look at myself and say, what does that moron want? But specifically because I want to be connected to society, and it's a natural law. This is why I behave the way I do, and it's even necessary for me, meaning that the influence of society over a person is necessary, and I also prepared a clip.
But I have a question.
Question? Great. I have no choice. Go ahead.
It's not me, it's our friends. They're pushing us. There are two questions I would like to ask. Christopher from Germany says, a person who said that is influenced from the society. So who decides the rules? And Frank is asking, why rulers, it seems that they have a free desire, a free choice. Did the Creator choose them?
I'll start with Rank, you'll continue with Christoph. There's a saying in Kabbalah that says that the hearts of ministers and kings is in the hands of the Creator. Think about the schedule of a minister, president, king. How many people are turning him in all different sides, how many people he relies and depends on and want from him and influence him, and he doesn't have a moment for himself to choose on his own. All the more a person that says that the Creator puts up this person as a doll and he has no choice. Rav Leitman, he says that it is the last person that has any choice. He's the doll of all. Because he is in that highest place, he's operated by all the nation, and the more distant you are from that hierarchy, the closer you are to the chance of being free. And also in Kabbalah it says about this, love the work and hate the establishment, so to speak, meaning it is there's nothing to be envious about. It seems that they're well off, but they have no freedom of choice. We see how the sons of kings were educated in England. They were put under the severest of conditions in order for them to truly become royalty. And I don't know where our rules come today from, but I wouldn't envy them.
And that relates to Christoph's question. Who creates the codes that decide those pleasures if the environment decides all that for me? So who actually stands behind all that? It's an interesting question. It's a question that advances us towards the four elements that Bala Sulam speaks of in his article, and soon during the lesson we will deal with it. But we can start thinking that if we already know, to a certain degree, the matter of roots and branches, how the rules operate, how forces cascade from above downward. What does it mean from above downward? From a state where one force of bestowal fulfills the entire reality and activates the will to receive through those reshimot which are encoded in it, whose sole goal is to clarify how much I am immersed in the will to receive, and inside that will to receive there is no ability, none whatsoever, to make contact with the Creator. And therefore, what happens in the humane culture environment we live in, which we grow in throughout the years, and now it becomes more and more and more extreme, we see to which extent, well, seemingly it happens very naturally, but we actually develop tendencies to things which are more extreme. The extreme sport, did we have it in the past? It didn't exist before that concept. What, people thought about such things? We are looking for more and more things in which, very simple, we will be able to find satisfaction and pleasure. Out of this general shimon, the environment and culture develop. We will elaborate on it soon.
When we're worried about this, think about the development of the desires. When a society wants one thing or another, whether it's honor or knowledge, it's the same reshimot which develop the desires. And so the influence of society develops, but we have to move on to saying that clip that we've prepared about. Let's see something kind of funny about how environment influences a person in an elevator. Let's see it.
The gentleman in the elevator now is a candid star. These folks who are entering, the man with the white shirt, the lady with the trench coat, and subsequently one other member of our staff, will face the rear. And you'll see how this man in the trench coat tries to maintain his individuality, but little by little, he looks at his watch, but he's really making an excuse for turning just a little bit more to the wall. Now we'll try it once again. Here's the candid subject. Here comes the candid camera staff, 3 of them at least. And this man has apparently been in groups before. Here's a fella with his hat on in the elevator. First he makes a full turn to the rear and Charlie closes the door. A moment later, we'll open the door. Everybody's changed positions. Now we'll see if we can use group pressure for some good. Now, in a moment, on Charlie's signal, everybody turns forward. Notice they take off their hats. And now, do you think we could reverse the procedure? Watch.
לא יודע אם לצחוק או לבכות מזה. אני חושב...
I don't know if to laugh or cry about it, but that's how we are. And whatever we do, were it revealed to us, I'm not sure that we would have been that happy about it. But it's hidden from us. There's a concealment over this.
Yeah, that's true. And also this path, the wisdom Kabbalah, has an ability to open it in such a delicate, special, tender manner for a person, and to really show each and every one of us where, if at all, exists the point of freedom of choice. And it becomes a kind of a funny game. Why? because we learn and we get the ability to look at ourselves from the side. All of a sudden, we have two lines of identifying, which we can identify with, which we can choose from. And soon we will talk about it.
Maybe I'll say nonetheless what kind of let me imagine that suddenly you could light up that point in the heart, look at it and say, wait a moment, my whole life I thought that I'm this machine, and suddenly I find out, hey, it's not me. It isn't. And suddenly there's a different possibility. Imagine how amazing that would have been. Let's return to our questions, because if society influences us this way, then Bala Sulami asks, if so, then tell me please, where is my freedom of choice? And on the other hand, if there is no freedom of choice, and each one of us is just as a machine which operates and is influenced by external forces which necessitate it to work the way it is, in a way that there is no one who's free, who works on his own. I'm not responsible for what I do because I want to do it, but because I'm influenced to do so beyond my reason, beyond my will. And if so, what follows is that there's no punishment or reward.
I am convinced that we did not hear what Bala Sulam writes about. Perhaps we should read it again. So you tell me, where is my freedom of will? Where? On the other hand, if we assume that there is no freedom of will, and every one of us is like a machine operating and creating through external forces which force them to act this way, this means that we are all created in the prison of providence. If I am not the one doing because I want to do, but because I'm being forced to do so, not knowingly or willingly, so it turns out that the reward and punishment are gone away. So it's not a philosophical question, it's an essential issue. Bala Sulam writes it very clearly. If we clarify the matter that our nature is the will to receive, and it is activated by two forces, one force that pushes us away from everything that harms us or pains us, as he writes, and another force that is pulling me towards pleasures, towards something which brings me pleasure, satisfaction, and this is how I operate.
And the environment, it targets and aims me at what to choose, how much to choose, how to choose.
So what? Am I a machine? Am I a robot? Built on proteins, electrolytes, and this I operate in the world in such a deterministic way, and everything that I do, I'm not accountable for it. Meaning, if I did something wrong, some crime, I didn't do it because I chose to. I did it because of my inheritance tendency, or because I grew in such an environment.
So who is there to punish? You punish someone who's responsible for what he does, that he chooses to do something on purpose. I thought that it's like in those, in the cartoons, like, the wicked, that they laugh about, ha ha ha, they do something out of choice. No, there's no choice. So there's many questions about it. If I understand correctly, is there a difference between, sorry for saying, but some Stalin and, I don't know, give me someone who's like a great altruist, Mother Teresa, Gandhi. But if there's no choice, what's the difference? Someone did that, someone did this. Because of his given qualities and the environment, the other does that. So there's no one holy. That's how he's influenced.
So why do we need courthouse for, or prisons for?
Right, prisons. You put in prisoners who come out much worse than they came in. Why? Because they fall into a much worse environment. You put together all those who are inclined this way, and you get the pure influence of something antisocial.
And is there any option to rehabilitate them?
It's not us, it's Bala Sulam who says these things, but that's how it is. If we look in terms of truth, the way it is, we all know for a long time that prisons, they don't bring you to...
They don't rehabilitate you.
They don't.
And Bala Salam says, we need to understand, Bala Salam in his articles, he doesn't leave things unscrutinized. He likes to clear the surface and to clarify it from here till the end of creation, to make it very clearly what we're dealing with. Therefore, he addresses very directly also to those people who depend on faith or blind religion, because this is how they were brought up, like, or atheistic people who don't think that there's any religion in the world, but they believe in government, democracy, moral culture, and he writes this.
She has a question, I think she's asking. To continue what you're asking, how, if so, do you explain those artists that they are anti-conformism, so to speak, those who go for all the alternative things and not necessarily that they follow the norms in society? How to explain it?
In exactly the same manner which we have explained in previous lessons, the concept of altruism. There's 10% of the population, people who by nature, they have an inclination for the benefit of others. Okay? That inclination exists in them, but it is a natural inclination inside their will to receive, and out of this inclination they get pleasure out of it, meaning this is how they're programmed. And it is also genetically proven. After Bala Sulam wrote that in the 40s of the previous century, so a few dozens of years later, science discovered that it is truly so. It's the same for artists, non-conformists, anarchists, then the same qualities in which I feel that I'm going against the stream, and we know it well. Actually, those qualities distinguish me from others. They make me feel more exalted than everyone else. They develop my ego, my point of uniqueness, but eventually, in a very clear way, they give me satisfaction and pleasure. This is how I'm programmed. This is what I want to do.
I know this artists, yes, we know this, and also that Tal, she's also an artist. She's into graphics.
Former artist.
Former, but as artists, we rely on the public. An artist, and also Dr. Lightman talked about it, it is in the form of the will to receive in terms of honor. He can't simply create if there's no audience that wants to show it. He can even destroy. He can even destroy his. He can even destroy his piece of art if it doesn't serve that goal. Meaning, whatever I do in favor, pro, con, I'm in connection with everyone. This is what I live on. This is what This is what I'm based on. So let's see what Bala Sulam says about it.
Bala Sulam writes this, and it is quite odd. What is odd? Not only for what the reward and punishment, it disappears. This is odd if we're programmed in such a way by inheritance or genetics. There is no reward or punishment. So Bala Sulam writes, and it is quite odd, not only for the Orthodox who believe in his providence and can rely on him and trust that he aims only for the best in this conduct. It is even stranger for those who believe in nature, since according to the above, we are all incarcerated by the chains of blind nature with no awareness of accountability. And we, the chosen species with reason and knowledge, have become a toy in the hands of the blind nature, which leads us astray and who knows there. These are hard words which bring down the human species, humankind, into a level of a donkey carrying a grinding stone,
with the old grinding stones, the way they used to circle around it.
walking around, and there's the cart before him, and behind him there's a whip beating him, and this is how it behaves.
And if the donkey, as Bala Salam says about that law, that no animal agrees to be enslaved, doesn't agree to it. If the donkey were to recognize that his whole life is to walk around in circles, he'd die immediately, because animals, they die when they're imprisoned. So what do? You cover his eyes, you put a sack with whatever, with carrots or whatever, and he has concealed it on the one eye, and on the other hand he has pleasure. And that's how it is with us. Were we to discover that our whole life we're pursuing pleasure, and that is our algorithm, and who we're working for, and where is it all headed, and what happens at the end of the 70 years, and what is that pleasure, and if we make calculations of the amount of suffering which we bear in order to compensate for those pleasures, as Bala Sulam says, who enjoys it? Meaning, we ask a question that I think that Andrea asked on the previous lesson. What's the meaning of it all? What's the purpose? If there's a program from above, if there's no choice, let's close everything up, and that's that. Choice or not choice, let's enjoy. Or it's possible. Bal Salami doesn't write us in order to put us down, this article, but on the contrary, to show us where our point of freedom of choice really is.
Questions? I'm sure you have some.
Yep, there are many questions about people. They're used to punishment. So there's the questions from Kalina from Bulgaria that says Kabbalah punishes, or that's how she sees it at least, that a Kabbalah punishes someone who does something on purpose, meaning that he on purpose does something bad. But who decides what's good, what's bad? Because eventually this is relative, and there are things that are good for some of the people, and for other people they're bad. So how is it determined, this thing? What's good, what's bad?
I will answer that, okay. We're advancing to a more advanced part of the lesson, where we're put very plainly in front of our blindness. If we are inside a loop in darkness, with no ability to exit our nature of the will to receive, which is activated by my inheritance and my environment, so where is my free choice, and who determines what is the good way to follow for a blind man? And this is where Kabbalists get into the picture, a chain of creation which was preserved throughout our entire evolution. Those chosen few Kabbalists who were able to implement the point in the heart which now appears in each and every one of you, and they have developed and adapted the method, and they are our shepherds. Rabash, he speaks about it very extensively. He resembles it to say that even if there is a flock of millions of people who are blind, it is enough to have one person, silver person, who can see and knows where to lead them to, then they are not strayed along the way. That is called faith in sages, and we have to choose our teacher. We need to clarify who a real teacher, who a real Kabbalist is, someone who can really lead me towards the light. So I think we should insist on that point, and to understand that people who know, who have tasted goodness, for it is written, taste and see that the Lord is good. So people who have reached spiritual attainment, they are the ones who should be our lighthouse. This is where we should strive for. And if we will follow their advices, and they have very clear advices, very clear, only to interpret them correctly and to implement them correctly, here we need a more complicated system.
I'd like to add, what's her name? Kalina or?
I lost her.
For our friends in Bulgaria, this is what I like to show. Kalina for a friend in Bulgaria. If you could show her a sketch in life, there are different things. Good, bad, good, bad, good, and so on. We believe, we that are in our box, that's, let's put it in brackets, will to receive. We look from within this program of the will to receive maximum pleasure and minimum effort. We look at things that happen to us in life. If you remember that this is the wheel of Rishimot that goes and grows, any case in life, good or bad, and we believe that there is a connection between an action, our action, that stems from our desire, and the result. We think that these things are a result. And therefore we say, okay, you did this, you'll get something bad. You did this, you'll get something good. And this is what we believe. This is all how all the methods and belief were created. Actually, if we look at it here, it has nothing to do with nothing. This is all in all the chain of Rishimot that comes out. So where's the reward? Where's the punishment? Kabbalists say about that when you come under that kind of providence, and a providence is a kind of existence, connection with upper force, with the roots, with the souls, that can be measured only with respect to one thing, this good and evil. Right? Let's call this good. Let's call this evil. Sorry, let's call it bad. Regardless of these things, because these things are in the will to receive, and when we develop the point in the heart, we develop beyond the will to receive. We get just one thing, how much I develop beyond any case my relation to the quality of bestowal or connection with the Creator, and accordingly, and only accordingly, do I determine good or bad, and only accordingly can I decide whether I get a punishment. What is a punishment? If I did something which sabotages my connection with the rest of the souls, that's called punishment. Why? Because I don't have the possibility, the opportunity to love them. It's a different kind of thought. The punishments we talk about in the wisdom of Kabbalah, it's not like we think, it's a perception. Maybe we'll talk about it. It is a perception of a completely different kind. So in our life, there's no such thing as punishments. There are cases that help us, as Amit said, to develop in our life toward the recognition that we have to rise above the will to receive and achieve spirituality.
I have to say something here. First of all, we will discuss it and we will elaborate it till the end of this semester. We will deal with it in a lesson called There's None Else Besides Him, where we will delve into what good or bad is, what am I suffering from if I'm disconnected, but I would like to clarify this point because we're in the beginning of our path and we live in this world. The perception that Kabbalists teach us is a radical perception. It opens up for us, it turns our whole world 180 degrees. It opens ourselves, we look at ourselves in a way we didn't know and didn't feel before. It makes us look inside, I see the environment and myself differently, and in a way that can bring me out of balance. Now I think that there is no accountability, there is no reward, no punishment, and here we have to understand real world the approach of Kabbalists. We cannot at all to rise and reach the heavens, the quality of bestowal, if my both feet won't be on the ground. If I won't put myself into this world, into its rules, into this perception of this world, with all of its so-called flaws, distortions, and everything that this world has to offer. I live here. It is called the world of actions, the world of results, consequences. It doesn't matter if I start feeling or see it as an amorphic dream. This is where I live. This is where I behave, and I should live and behave like everyone else. And in that, I have this inner work that starts to grow in me, and me with my friends to the path start balancing myself into a different direction and perception, and I need to develop those two things simultaneously. My good life in this world, good life like everyone else live in this world. I need to have a good family, good income, good life. And at the same time, to simultaneously develop my spiritual kli, which we now start to scrutinize.
Meaning that we're with both feet on the ground, and what develops as in us is the relation toward this world, toward everything that happens with me. It's like Dr. Lightman always gives this example with a stereogram, the 3D picture. This is life, and Kabbalah teaches us as to cross our eyes to reach a special angle where suddenly start seeing a depth in this whole life, and I see every case, where does it lead us, why and how we behave there. These are things that we start talking about, then you really start living. Another question?
Yeah. We said many good things about the light, that everyone under its influence. And Joannis is asking, if the light is what guides us, so how can it be that we will act differently other than good and beneficial way and all the good things that we should behave like and be called good? I will start with one saying and you will add to it, okay? There is this saying that Kabbalists use. I have created the evil inclination. I have created the evil inclination. Okay, it's from the Torah. I've created the evil inclination. I've created the light that reforms from it, because the Torah despises for it, because the light in it is the light that reforms. Or man's inclination is evil from his youth. So what does it mean? I will tell Juanis. We have to see the situation as it is with our own eyes. I don't know what light is. I don't see that people behave according to too much giving or light. If I open the newspaper, what I see is the opposite. So what is the action of the light? The action of the light, as Amit said, is in two levels. These are always the two forces we're speaking of. To expand and reveal to me my vessel of desire, how deep it is, how much of a correction it needs, how much I need to bring every part of it towards the quality of bestowal. And the moment that need is created in me, and this is one action of the light, that I will have a need for spirituality. What a need do I have? Ask your neighbor, where are you from? He says from, it doesn't say. Okay, let's say, Juanis, it sounds like from Polish. I'm just joking. Let's say you're from Poland, the Lodz. So ask your neighbor about his goodness, about his spirituality. Is he evil? No, everything is fine. What are you talking about? The action of the light starts appearing when we long I have no desire for spirituality unless the light shines upon me. And I would like to add that this is an opportunity of all of us to remember why we're studying what we're studying now for. Not to be too clever, too sophisticated, to know how to talk about a freedom of choice now. We want to be with Baal Sulam and what he speaks about. Perhaps I don't agree with him. I rebel against what he says. No, it's not true. I have a freedom of choice. No problem here. Let's keep that. And at the same time, let's keep going with Baal Sulam, because now he's going to tell us where is the place where we scrutinize the point of choice. Now, interlude, and we'll be back.
Okay, we'd like to talk about, and this is what Baal Salam focuses us on, the four factors, which are the realm in which we can scrutinize our freedom of choice. In order to do that, we're rising to the level of roots, forces. So the purpose of creation is creating a new me, a creature, something that we didn't have before. The way the Creator creates the creature, there is a Kli filled with light. He's full of pleasure, and the goal is for that creature to get a pleasure and an independent desire. That's the whole story. The creature was created in the will to receive, and this is the first factor called the bed, so to speak, the very fundamental basis. This is his substance. This is something that doesn't ever disappear. It will stay forever. On the one hand, the Creator, he creates the creature in the will to receive. It already turns the creature to be independent, disconnected from the creature, because the creature is in the will to receive, the Creator is in the will to bestow, and there is lack of compatibility between them. And the Creator wants for the creature to receive all the possible light in it. This is what the desire eventually aspires for. And then we ask ourselves, where's the choice? Where's the choice then? On the one hand, the creature is in the quality, the will to receive. This is my nature, this is my essence. And all that he wants to receive, the light, the quality of the Creator, different natures. So where's the choice? What can the choice be in? And Baal Sulam, he tells us, he says, any incident, any element, any whatever exists in reality, it comes and stems and exists due to four factors. So we talked about one, which is called the very basic factor. We call it the bed, but it's the most fundamental factor. And Baal Sulam gives this example like seed, a seed of weed. You put it into the ground, it rots after some time, peels off, and there's some kind of raw material left, which is not wheat, but it is the bed. That is the most fundamental, basic matter of the wheat. That's the first factor. The second factor is?
The second factor is the way this bed, this matter, the essential matter develops. So, if we take a grain of wheat, necessarily from a grain of wheat, a wheat will grow, not anything else. Not quinoa, not no bean. From wheat, there will be wheat. And from a complex of genes called Moshe Admoni will come out of it. And it applies to Tal and everyone else. So every one of us, and now we reflect it upon ourselves, if every one of us has his own bed, this is the genes that he received. So this is how we will develop essentially. And if my father was an alcoholic, then probably I too, in my genes, will be the same way, because these are the way of the growth of the bed. This is how it develops, also spiritually speaking and corporally speaking.
we're getting back to the level of the roots, from the will to receive, imprinted in the will to receive, the very order of the roots and laws, and or law of root and branch, and the Rishimot, which necessitated for the future creature to stem from it at the end of the correction, which is equal to the creator. The final factor, which we know, we call it the environment. It's not that simply in vain I put the drop of seed in the air, I put it in the ground. And thanks to the soil, to the rain, to the sun, to the minerals, this seed develops. And what it could have been some, weak, thin wheat, but because it was in a good environment, it comes out in the masses, it comes out strong and good. And same with the world structure of the souls, where the future creature is developed, serves as a womb where the Potsufim, the souls, we'll talk about it in the following semester, but this is what nourishes the creature and grow it with its different influences. And this is the environment in the different worlds. We can say part of the world, part of the soul, and the rest of the part of the souls that influence us together with the light. And the fourth factor,
the conduct of the development of the environment, meaning in which sense the environment in which I act or am present is influenced by independent elements which are not in my control. I will give an example about the field of wheat. If I plant a seed in a field which is seemingly good, nourishing, good sun, good ground, good minerals, still that field can get a severe hay or drought, something which does not depend directly on the environment, rather something that affected the weather in the world. And even if I put a good seed which grows well, second element, and I put in a third element, in an excellent field, still there is an external independent development which does not depend on me, rather it depends on the whole system which affects that seed.
And on the level of roots is that very same desire we talked about, that suddenly an external force operates on it, and there's a phenomenon like the shattering of the vessel. Suddenly the soul shatters into its pieces, and there's a mixture in each part. There's an incorporation of both pieces, bestowal and reception, and it doesn't depend neither on the creature or his development, but on something external, which works on it, influences it. And why is it called external? Because it doesn't have any direct contact with the bed, the hay, it doesn't influence it directly. And in every person it is expressed. Amit said that there are the conducts of the development of the heritage, and we see the environment and what we talk about, and all suppose the development of our desires, the development of the crisis, and it changes it all.
It's a question that science deals with, studies it, invests billions of dollars in it. What determines my behavior, my qualities, my nature, my choices? Is it my genes? Is it my environment? There was always this struggle between psychology, biology, genetics, and today we find the middle path where we see that this is a mutual influence between those two elements. The way I'm structured genetically, it is said that everything today is genetics. There are studies about politics views, which is also genetics, and even more so my character and the environment I live by and how it influences me and so on.
I remember when I studied psychology, eventually it was funny. There's the nature, there's the nurture, and then you check what's more, what's less. Research is like this, research is like that, and eventually they make some kind of a combination, and what comes out is a kind of a mixture, but they never ask whether a person is free. That's not something I knew about in psychology.
And if we're talking about DNA, Nick from London is asking what's the difference between the physical DNA and the spiritual DNA. We spoke of Rishimo, so he's asking why.
Root and branch, we have the root, the spiritual DNA, and all that will stem, and we have the branch, the DNA on the level of this world.
Another question. Natiel from France he says, to continue what was said before, that according to Kabbalah, everything is determined for us and not by chance. So why should we speak at all about a free choice?
That's exactly the question we want to scrutinize. We don't want to say that there's none. Don't be wrong about this. We didn't come to suppress you and say, guys, there's no choice. Together with the Baal Salam, want to go with them hand in hand and see where do we have choice. And then if I know that that is the place of choice, that is where I have to focus myself. That is where I have to invest all of my forces, because that is also the place of the development.
More questions?
Emilio from Spain is asking if the environment and nature actually determine my behavior. Can we really change environment and change nature?
Of course we can change the environment. Yeah, of course we can. We know it from our lives, always. We can move, we change where we live or where we work. We choose those things, do we? So, if now we gradually understand what we have learned here from Baal Salam, then we can already ask ourselves, do we really choose that? Or does something force me to choose that? The force of pleasure or the force of pain? Now, if I'm fed up, as I can remember that my 3 years old daughter didn't like to go on buses in the center of Tel Aviv, and we've been doing it for many years. So my wife and myself said, it is enough. We're moving to the city, we're moving to the village. Now we'll have a good life in the village. And we moved to a house, 360 degrees of nature, a small river outside. Did we choose that or didn't we? So, of course we can choose an environment, but if the choice is done out of our ego, out of our will to receive, out of this paradigm of pleasure pulling me, it's more pleasant, it's more convenient for my child. Why should she suffer? I will move to the village, she will have a better education, better air, and I will be able to enjoy nature myself. So what pulled me there? My free will or some pleasure I hoped I will have?
In order to really nail this down, look, let's remember the 4 factors. Where am I free? In my source, spiritual DNA, heritage. I'm not free. I didn't determine how will I develop. I'll be happier to be much higher, blonde, blue eyes. By the way, I heard that 106 degrees is the perfect nose. I didn't choose my environment too. I didn't choose to study with the teacher at Shoshana or in that kindergarten, or with whatever I went through in life. If it were up to me, I'd choose completely different things. And also everything around. Different forces and changes and things. And so, if with none of these factors that Bala Sulam tells us about, which are the foundation for each and everything, if we don't choose this, then where do we? So, short clip, and we'll come back.
Okay, so now we would like to answer this question, because if we don't have a free choice, then we have a problem. So we've been talking about it for a long time, and now we would like to advance to the resolution of Bala Sulam. Bala Sulam writes in his article, The Freedom: there is a freedom for the desire to choose to start with such an environment, such books and such guides, which imparts upon him good knowledge. And if he will not do that, rather, if he's prepared to be in any environment and to read any book that falls to his hands, and out of that he gets bad knowledge and education which brings him to sin and convict, of course he will be punished, not because of his bad thoughts and deeds, which he has no choice over. Rather, it is because he did not choose to be in a good environment, because in that, surely he has a free choice, as explained.
The truth is, Bala Sulam says here things, we'll soon dig into it, we'll see all of our work here. All the work which the Kabbalists did in order to transcend to the true free choice. First of all, we don't have choice too. Until we were brought to this place, to the wisdom of Kabbalah. We opened up with a point in the heart. It is what brought us to search. It's a new desire for the recognition of the Creator. Let's call it godliness. And this is where we are, starting from the moment that we're here. Well, what's the date now?
29th?
Write it down. Write it down. Today, on the 29th of June, we are studying what my freedom of choice really is. Starting from the moment that we are here, we can start choosing between the will to receive, which awakens in the point in the heart. Where am I? As the drop of seed, where do I put myself? Into what environment? We have the freedom of choice where to put ourselves. So let's see. Bala Sulam says that specifically we have freedom to choose in advance an environment, and we have several environments in life now, to choose the teachers that will give us the right understanding, the good understanding, good how, what will bring us closer to the quality of bestowal, choice, development, not to be under this development, and unless we will do it. Like always in life, I'm ready to come to any environment and get from it any influence. So what does Bala Sulam say? To read every book or whatever. And as a result, he becomes necessitated to take on bad development, meaning desires that pull me in every other possible direction than the good, because I see that I am obligated. Whatever environment I put myself under, that's it. I'm enslaved. Only what? Now we have choice. Where do I plant myself? In what environment? What environment do I add to my life? What does it cause? It means to distance yourself from the purpose of life if you choose a bad environment, and for sure one will be punished for it. And who looks at it? Bala Sulam does, and he says that that person gave up his ability to choose a good environment, and he is distancing from the purpose of creation. There is no greater punishment, but not because of the thoughts and desires and all that the actions that he does as a result of that environment. He's not to blame. It's not on him. He's not responsible. But why? He has no choice over them. But why is he punished? Because he did not choose to be in a good environment, and there you have choice for sure.
So let's have a drawing now to make things clear. This is each and every one of us, and we stay away from everything that rejects us, and we are running to everything that gives us pleasure, and this is our world. Okay, the will to receive. What happened to us? The point in the heart was awakened in us. The point in the heart is not a part of this world. It's apart from here. From the corrected place. And it is looking for its root to come back to its root. This is where she wants to go to. And therefore, only out of this place where I have the ability to choose. So now we understand that is called good, that is called bad. This is how I call good and bad in my world. What is pleasant or not pleasant for me? And all of a sudden, the point in the heart tells me, no, look, now that will be good spirituality, and reception, that will be bad. Doesn't matter if I feel good or bad here. Rather, if my intention, if my perception, if my tendency is into the world of reception, the world of the ego, the world of separation and isolation, that is bad. And if my tendency starts developing in the direction of unity, connection, of mutual concern, where in that place of the connection between people, there I want to reveal this one force called the Creator and to find my new self there, which grows internally, and it has the ability to bestow, meaning that the light goes through him to the rest of the pieces which are his. That is good. And here we get the discernment between what is, instead of good and bad, to something that is called truth or lie.
And then what Bala Salam says that I don't simply choose these things, but I have two kinds of environments. Short for environment, and here too. I have another environment. One environment gives me all those desires which we already know: money, honor, knowledge, everything besides spirituality. The other environment that we came to today, or a month ago, is the environment of the studying of the Kabbalah, of the Kabbalists, of all of you together on the Facebook. And what's special about that environment? That it influences me. And this is actually the most special thing, this environment of all the friends that study and all the Kabbalists. It influences me by one thing. It influences me by the light that performs. It influences me with the importance for spirituality, that this thing to reach what's above, that the point in the heart, that the purpose in life, this being the purpose in life, the point in the heart, that is what that environment gives me. And then what you get here is like, it's like the delta that we get here. It becomes like inside me, like a place of choice between two environments. What do I give more importance to? Where do I put myself? Do I put myself under this environment here? Add it to my life. Of course, we're not saying cancel this thing. No, we're not saying that at all. Continue life. Wait. Take me, not because I'm important, but in order to hear this explanation. Look, friends, what we do in life, it's very important. Don't go crazy. Don't think that I have to cancel I don't know, get rid of my work, friends, wife, or whatever. Everything goes on as was, but in addition to that, I make all possible efforts to choose the right environment, the wisdom of Kabbalah, the Facebook environment, the reading from time to time, the lessons, the blog by Rav Lightman, all that I can to introduce that into my life in my free time.
You also see that this delicate point that Moshe mentioned is the point that will grow to the point of freedom of choice. As you go, that point of freedom of choice will become more delicate, more sensitive, more clarified, and this is the whole thing. Otherwise, why do we need the creation for? The entire creation, the sole goal of creation is to create an independent creature. Because the creature, the way it was created, we learned it, was immediately filled up with the light of Ein Sof, and we said, in that case, we can close the whole show. No, the idea is to bring him to a point where he is separated from the Creator, and he chooses to adhere to the Creator, all of it, with all of his will to receive, with his ego. On top of that, the creature himself chooses to cleave on to the quality of bestowal. Why? Out of its greatness, out of its importance, out of the understanding and the feeling that she created him, and so on and so forth. This is that gap grows bigger and bigger as we go, and this is what we scrutinize. Where is that point in which I can choose and position myself in a balanced way that will sustain my corporal life correctly, in a good way, for me and my environment, for my family, for my relatives, for my city, and at the same time it will be able to develop my potential as much as possible.
I want to add one more thing. I'll tell you a small secret. We all the time say that the will to receive wants pleasure, but the truth is that from the roots of creation, the will to receive it's drawn only to one thing, that it's much higher than the pleasure. Importance. The will to receive wants connection with the giver, because the giver seems to him much more important than the pleasure. And this is exactly the delta that we have here. I can place myself in such an environment and get the importance for spirituality from it, the importance for the purpose of life, for bring something more from the wisdom of Kabbalah into my life, or I can put myself under the influence of such an environment that gives me the importance for all the rest of the things. Why? It distances me from the purpose of creation. Bala Sulam, he writes about it in Shamati. It's a beautiful quote. He says, if he, the man, the person, doesn't have any desire or yearning for spirituality, if he finds himself among people who do have yearning for spirituality, and if these people are favorable in his eyes, he takes the strength to prevail in their desires and aspirations, although by his own quality he does not have these desires and cravings and the power to overcome. And this is extremely important. This is in Shamati 99, Bala Sulam says that. Sometimes you probably remember this, like a month ago you came here to the course after you were searching and you were looking and suddenly you found the course. And yeah, great, amazing, whoa, Amita, Dr. Lightman. Finally I found everything, and 3 weeks or 4 weeks later, it's not that whoa, it's okay. So what do? I can't turn something inside myself and I'll have a desire once again. How do I influence the desire? What do I turn in order to influence my desire for spirituality? Where do I get the reforming light from? What do I do even if I don't have a desire? Even if I don't have a desire for spirituality, what do? I make the effort. I put myself in here. What does it mean? I get a bit more into Facebook. I read something, even if I don't have the desire. And look, this is something that only someone with the point in the heart does. I don't have the desire. I don't have the yearning for it. I put myself under the influence of an environment, and suddenly you'll see how the desire, the aspiration, the yearning comes back. You go back to that special taste and much more. Suddenly the purpose of life becomes important, and this is what the entire struggle is over. The whole story between the Egyptians and coming out to the quality of the Creator, which are called Israel, or the Amalek, which is the acronyms of in order to receive, al menat lekabel, and to kill all those desires inside us. Like we say, hey, let it be, don't fight that. The whole thing is the environment. Strengthen your environment. We'll talk about that in the lesson about none else besides Him. But the point of choice starts with where do we add the spirituality? How do we plant ourselves in that environment? And there is a much greater dimension to it. Suppose I put myself into that, what other kind of choice is there?
To which extent, in a place where I place myself, now I choose to be inside a group, a virtual group, a physical group, a group that deals with the wisdom of truth, that develops me into spirituality. What do I do there? How active am I there? With the intention, with the concern, with my desire, and with my thought, and in practice, because we live in the world of action. Because basically, if now I send a tiny smiley, really, and I really don't feel like doing it, and I hate Facebook anyway, I don't understand this whole corresponding, what is it for? But I see this for the friends talking and excited, and I add my small smiley and like, does it cause anything or doesn't? Check and see. So what am I trying to say? Baal HaSulam writes about it. In that he ends the chapter about the choice of a good environment. In my eyes, it is the foundation for our success in spirituality. It is so important, that verse. You should engrave it on your heart. I will read it. Therefore, after Baal HaSulam said that whoever places himself in a good environment, he is the one rewarded with praise and reward just by placing himself in a good environment. But did I choose to put myself here? I was awakened. I was brought here. Now I was sitting here. They revealed the wisdom of truth for me. Now I sit and study. And what's next? Here begins the path. Therefore, he who exerts during his lifetime and chooses every time a better environment, therefore he is worthy of praiseworthy and reward. And here too, not because of his good deeds and thoughts, which necessarily come to him without his choice. Rather, because of his efforts to acquire a good environment for him, which brings him to such thoughts and actions. The principle is simple, but it is not easy to apprehend. Every action, every thought, every desire, every word that comes out from my mouth actually necessarily will be an offspring of my qualities from birth and the influence of the environment. My choice is to place myself in an environment where simultaneously, in addition to my balanced life in this world, will advance me towards spirituality. And in that environment, I will have to find myself choose every time I knew this is the effort. And why? Because the Creator, He wants us to be independent. He wants us to grow like kids, to acquire by ourselves the same craftsmanship of creation. And like now I'm breaking down a big Lego, a big puzzle for my kid, and I tell him put it together, meaning choose. And he will make an effort, and perhaps he will come to me and say, hey daddy, help me. And I won't even give him a hint as a father. Same thing here. After the Creator takes and awakens the poet in the heart and brings it to a good environment, you will see that gradually, as Moshe mentioned, he's letting go, he's pulling his hands, and the same enthusiasm, excitement gradually fades away, and here starts the work of a free choice, and it's fun. It can be even easy. It's an easy effort. It's like an athlete or musician training on this new ability that he had acquired, but it will be fun, pleasant, happy, and challenging only if I will surround myself with a supportive environment.
An additional special thing is that the choice is not in the factors. If we talk about the factors being the environment and the ways in which the environment develops, it's not about that. It's in the welding point between them. Bala Sulam says that he who exerts himself to choose a better environment every time. What does that mean? Okay, I found a good environment. Where is there a better environment? What is there, a more advanced neighborhood, or what? Tell me. Why does he say that that is the connection point between the environment and the ways of the development of the environment? What does that mean? That in the smallest things, I could already be in an environment, but add to it. How? I could invest in them, meaning I could write them a poem. I could open my heart about how spirituality is important for me, send them a smiley, tell them how important the lesson is. Doesn't matter. But when I invest myself in the friends, I add 1 more gram to their importance. That's it. That's enough. That means that I have chosen a better environment, meaning that I have brought greater importance to the friends, the students that are with me, and then the light starts working on them more strongly, and I, together with that environment, start rising to a higher level because I'm integrated with them. How come? Because I have invested in them, and that's how I influence myself through them, and that's something amazing. That's something that I can do. Kabbalahs, they call it a game. That it could be that I don't have the desire. We see that sometimes the Kli is revealed, the desire without the light, as Amit said. We learn that there's this law that after the light penetrates, it has to leave the desire, to leave a place of choice for the desire. And then I will see that in these states too, I can smile, maybe inside. Hey, it's burning hell, but I smile. And I don't want to see you nor spirituality, but I smile and I write great friends. I don't know what happens. I projected onto Amit how important spirituality is to me, and Amit and Tal and everyone who are my environment. You treat me this way only, like spirituality is important, so on. And then inside already treating and relating to me this way, you become my environment. You fix it down in me. You make that direction for spirituality as the constant steady thing, and that's me plus 1 already there. So why is this effort so important, the exertion? Why? If I feel like it, I do. If I don't, then I won't do it, and that's that. What is it about the effort?
Okay, it's also a question of how we define that concept of effort, because seemingly what we strive for is rest. Bala Sulam writes about it in the same article, which we recommend that you should read, The Freedom, and it also stems from a root. It is written, the light is in constant rest. What is the light? The upper light, the light of Ein Sof, infinity, is in a state of constant rest. We cannot understand it. These are endless numbers of actions which seemingly reach a state of zero. Out of infinity, we have no ability to measure it. But the concept of an effort is a concept which is imprinted in our perception inside the concept of evil and good, bad and good. So now, seemingly, if I make an effort, then why should I do this effort for? The question is, what do I get out of this effort? If I get something, then I make the effort so I can exercise 4, 5, 6 hours playing piano because I have a hoped pleasure, or to climb mountains because I get pleasure from it. We see people make great efforts, physical, mental efforts in this world because they get pleasure from it. Now, the unique thing in the wisdom of Kabbalah is that now, seemingly, says Bala Sulam, he who makes an effort throughout his life and every time chooses a better environment. So I need to make an effort to choose an environment. And we're saying that choosing the environment is something we would do willingly, physically, inside the limited framework I was given. So that environment is opposed to my nature. My nature is the will to receive, and that environment takes me to a different place called the will to bestow. I don't know what it is. I don't know how anything is felt there before I can really feel it and experience it myself. So I don't feel like making such an effort sometimes. And if I'm inside an environment, I do feel like it. So here exactly is where we have this scrutiny. How do I bring myself constantly to such a state where I feel like doing this effort? I want to make an effort. What will make me want to make an effort if I don't get a pleasure from the quality of bestowal? If the quality of bestowal is concealed from me, there is a barrier between me and the spiritual world. Who will I get from the taste of the quality of bestowal?
And this is exactly where it comes in what we talked about earlier. I get something higher than the pleasure from my environment. I get the importance that they tell me this is important. And throughout life, we do crazy stuff that isn't important, but we're told it's important. You know, the different advertisements, the different brands, yeah, they say this is important. If I put myself into an environment which is important to me and they say that this is important as a result of their influence, I get a great desire to achieve what the Kabbalists talk about, and then the reforming light works on me and brings me and my friends closer to the goal. That's it. We need an environment, and we choose such an environment by adding it to our life and by improving it ourselves, and that environment gives us the importance. And one more thing before the questions. Look, something very important. We are working with an environment of points in the heart. Whoever wants, like I remember when I started studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, you have to remember there's something amazing and like this and like that. I don't have to convince the whole world. Try. Look, you can leave a book, you can give a link, you can do whatever. Don't try to persuade someone yourself. Do all that work with those same friends like you who are students who are interested in it. And the second thing is determine for yourself, what does your free time mean? Free time for, meaning to bring the wisdom of Kabbalah into my life. It's time that I'm neither obligated to my wife or friends or kids or work. I have time to be with my own and choose what do. I can play Spider-Man on
Sony
my
PlayStation.
Sony PlayStation, or I
To
can
watch a soccer game in the World
watch a
Cup.
soccer game, the World Cup, right? And maybe that's necessity, I don't know, but we say this is your free time. And when I master to myself, meaning that I can choose to introduce one more thing from the wisdom of Kabbalah into that, I'm on the bus, I'm driving, I could read something. This is the matter of choice. You'll see that it's not mysticism. not astrology, not whatever. It's in life, here and now. The wisdom of Kabbalah is not far from us.
Nowadays, with technology, we have, you'll see, it's amazing how the thought of creation organizes everything. The points in the heart are awakened everywhere throughout the world, and everywhere in the world, such desires for spirituality are awakened and are drawn to the authentic wisdom of Kabbalah. It happens everywhere in the world. In the same way, the purpose of creation, the thought of creation, this whole process, and how it is expressed in the students and our teacher, that allows us to choose a good environment. There's no such thing that the Creator awakens the point in the heart and leaves it. I have nothing to do. I live all by myself on an iceberg on Greenland. Today we have internet, the world is connected, there's Kabbalah info site, in 80,000 languages, you can find all the materials there, you can find there the lessons, audio, video, text, and we have the Facebook group, we spoke about it many times before. This is the foundation, the Facebook group. It can become something alive that you can feel between you. It can even be more than a recommendation now. Try to get in there, see, react, how you do, you don't, it feels something inside or doesn't. Start doing this work of scrutinizing what is a spiritual environment for me, what is a corporal environment for me, how do I start balancing those two things together, what's the main thing, what's secondary, what is necessary in my life, and I can't do anything that is related to spirituality. What is luxuries now? I can choose. I have some spare time. I can do this. I can do that.
Let's sum up just in order to understand the importance of free choice. What's the difference between me before the point in the heart and me, Moshe, after I realized the point in the heart? Look. Let's write down here before and here after, just for you to understand how important it is. Here, there is a desire, regardless which desire. I have to follow this desire, regardless what. Here awakens a desire, but I don't have to. Listen to it. I relate to it from within the point in the heart, and atop that desire, I can grow the point in the heart, the importance for spirituality. I do not depend on the desire. I make a calculation toward bestowal, toward the environment that we talked about. Now, if there's a desire awoken in me and I do what the desire demands, meaning this is me and this is the desire on the same level, this is Moshe as a beast. Let's put a beard on me. And if I go above the desire and the rosh, the intention, the thought is in the direction of the realization of the point of the heart, then the head is above the body. Therefore, the Kabbalists call it the discernment of Adam. For that Moshe who realizes spirituality, and they call this the beast. Here there's no choice, there's no good or bad action. Here there's already choice. A good action where I will grow the point in the heart which brings me closer to the Creator, and a bad deed which pushes me away. Here we are under the total influence of the environment, and here we could be those who influence our environment, start to work with it. And this is something new, exciting, and we'd really like to give you as this task for you this week on the Facebook group. Tal.
A lot of confusion, this explanation about the environment caused. What is a good environment? How do we choose a good environment? What is the frequency that we can choose in a good environment? What is a good choice? It's not really clear. What else do we have here? I will answer that for now, okay? Now, first of all, excellent. The fact that there's confusion, excellent. Excellent, excellent, excellent. You can relax. Confusion is good. Confusion is a very good condition for spiritual development. Kabbalists direct us, and also the study, to be more confused than to come up knowing, understanding from a lesson. No, to be confused is good, because that means that now we have absorbed some other information, something which is formatted in us internally in the system. I don't know what to do with it yet. Now I'm searching for that knowledge. How do I implement it? How do I acquire? How do I move from knowledge to understanding? So the matter of choice is very confusing, not just in the first lesson that we learn about it, rather throughout the entire path, because this is a matter of choice. We will always hesitate, we will play, I will be confused. How to choose? Is that spirituality? Even after 10 years on the path, is that spirituality or corporality? You will see. So the main point of scrutiny is constantly exactly in that place. Where do I choose, and how do I choose? With the help of what do I choose?
Look, dear friends, there's a factor of time. Our time is up, but we promise to answer all of your questions, and you can add on the Facebook. Let's put it this way: how to realize freedom, this choice. The choice this week. First task, let's do the following. Let's try and get on Facebook and let's examine what happens to our desires. What's more important for me when I get on our Facebook and when I'm in a different environment? Let's try and learn this on ourselves. A judge has only what his eyes see. And maybe share it with each other on Facebook, and what happened with me, what did I pay attention to. It's very important, interesting, by the way. The second thing is, let's try bestowing onto the friends on the Facebook page, regardless which language, preferably on the general Facebook. Start talking to them how important spirituality is, how important Kabbalah is, how impressed we are by certain articles, and we'll see not only how it influences but the friends, but as a result, how does it influence me in return? What does it do to me? And let's write that down on the Facebook too. Meaning this week, let's see, and from this point on, how do we realize the choice in my steps and the environment in which we study? It's going to be very important.
So I wish us a week of good choices on the way to the truth and light. We wish you all the best. We will be in touch throughout the week, and we will answer your questions, and we will meet next week.
All the best, everyone. We love you.